Let's now move on to our third and final main topic today. And our third and final main topic today gets submitted to us simply by Hen. And Hen writes the following. Hey, John, DC Fandom Part 2 has happened recently, and there was a Flash movie Q&A. And the director said that the Flash will restart everything and will not forget about anything. And it will feature a lot of DC characters. What do you think about these comments, and does this get you excited for the movie? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, DC Fandom, you may have forgotten about it because for, I don't know what their logic was, they separated day 2 of DC Fandom by 3 weeks. Separated from DC Fandom Part 1. That was stupid, but I did like the fact that they made it 2 separate days, one day all for Q&As. That was kind of smart, but you may have forgotten that they just had day 2. Part of which was this Q&A with the Muschiettis, the producer and director of the Flash movie. And yeah, they said something. Now there's a couple things going around about it. One of the things is getting the most attention, when really I think something else they said is what should be getting the most attention. But anyway, this comes to us from Batman News that writes, Andy Muschietti confirmed the film is inspired by the Flashpoint storyline, but is not a direct adaptation. That's huge. That's huge. Because a lot of people have been talking about the next Flash movie, about how it's going to unfold in terms of how that relates to the original Flashpoint storyline, thinking this is just going to be Flashpoint. Muschietti has come out and said, this is definitely inspired by Flashpoint, but it is not a direct adaptation, which is kind of exciting because that means anything could happen in this movie. It's not going to just be confined to what happened in the Flashpoint story. Anyway, he promised you would still have a lot of surprises in the film. Meanwhile, Barbara Muschietti, his wife and producer, has perhaps the most telling answer of the Q&A, as she said, there are a lot of DC characters in it. To me, that's the big story. That's the big line. There are a lot of DC characters in it. Flash is the superhero of this film because he is the bridge between all these characters and timelines. And in a way, she says, in a way, it restarts everything and doesn't forget anything. So remember, that wasn't Andy who said that. That was Barbara who said that, the producer of the film. And I like the way she says, now, in a way, it restarts everything and blah, blah. Because some people, Rob, I've seen a lot of people just taking that term, saying, oh, did you hear they're saying that this restarts everything. It's like, no, that's not exactly what they said. They said kind of, in a way, it sort of restarts everything, but remembers everything. Actually, you know what, Rob, the website Batman News, which is where I read this main thing up, they had a really good observation about what that all meant. And they said the following. Let's see, where is, okay, here it is. Their observation was this. While there has been some talk of the Flash serving as a hard reset on the DCEU, it's beginning to sound as though it is simply going to say that all live-action DC projects are valid. You just have to accept that they don't all exist in the same universe, which I love that observation from Batman News because that's completely in line with what Walter Hamada said at DC Fandom Part 1. When he was talking about multiverse, because look, they're all separate, but they're all together. If you want to think that they're connected, go ahead and think that they're all connected because it's a multiverse. So all this stuff that's why we can have the Robert Pattinson Batman movie and we can have Ben Affleck popping up in the Flash movie and all that kind of stuff. It gives an underlying reason why all this is there. So I honestly think that the main news there, Rob, is them saying that there's going to be a lot of DC characters. So we start wondering, is Henry Cavill going to pop up in there? Are we going to see Cyborg, despite all the drama that's been going on lately? Are we going to see Cyborg pop up in there? Is Ben Affleck's Batman not the last piece of the puzzle we're going to see? Are we going to see Tom Welling's Superman pop up in there? I mean, maybe yes, maybe no, but they've already drawn some kind of connection with him in the CW universe, and they've drawn the connection between the movie universe and the CW universe with Crisis on Infinite Earths. So, I mean, that you could say that. I mean, it really does open up a lot of possibilities that have no long-reaching ramifications because of the multiverse stuff. And that's something they seem to be leaning into. Rob, you read all these comments, right? About it's being influenced by Flashpoint or inspired by Flashpoint, but not necessarily Flashpoint. A lot of different DC characters. It restarts things, but kind of doesn't. What out of all this stands out to you the most? And what do you think is the most important thing that was said there?
Well, one, I find this to be a whole lot of fun because as a lifelong DC Comics fan, I think that's really great that they're leaning into this multiverse aspect of the story. But I didn't expect them to directly adapt the Flashpoint storyline because there's things in it I don't think they're going to do. But I love the idea. I don't think we're going to see like CW characters or television characters. I think they need to keep this feature film oriented. But then again, I mean, you never know. But I wouldn't think ultimately that they would do that because they've already got enough in terms of feature film characters that they can utilize. But I think we might see characters we've never seen before from the DC universe on film, you know, because they can introduce all kinds of people in brief roles. So to me, it's just really exciting. And to have a filmmaker, you know, that Warner Brothers trusts, that has now a great earning relationship with the studio. Andy Muschietti's made some money for them. And so he's got some power as a director, and him and his producing partner, obviously, they're simpatico. So I think we're going to get a film that is going to be surprising, and I think it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. And I'm really excited for this movie now.
Let me ask you this, because I'm seeing some other outlets really running like with headline, "The Flash movie restarts everything." And like, again, when I read what Barbara actually said and I look at the lines, and in a way she said it restarts everything and doesn't forget anything. Like, personally, I look at that as sort of suggesting, Rob, that I think, yeah, it's going to be a new beginning for Flash, or it's going to represent something new for somebody. And maybe I'm looking at this from too narrow of a field of view on this, but I read what she said saying, you know, in a way it kind of restarts things. I'm not seeing her at all saying that the DCEU is being blown up and starting from scratch for all the characters. So I don't know. Because I'm seeing some other outlets and some online discussion basically leaning into that, saying, oh no, they said it's restarting everything. What do you think they meant by, in a way, it's restarting things while also remembering everything? Like, what do you think that sort of meant? The mystery abounds here, Rob. What does it mean, do you think?
See, I think a lot of the time the fan community, they forget to take reality and the business aspects of movie making and combine that with storytelling. You know, when you hear people say, oh, it's restarting everything, ooh, that means it's going to be like it becomes, you're starting to think about it as it's going to be like the MCU, the DCEU is starting up again. I think I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think what she's saying is that it's sort of, now that we're embracing the idea of a multiverse, we don't necessarily, and Walter Hamada said that too at DC Fandome, we're leaning into that idea. That means this limited idea of what's the DCEU going to be is no longer, we're establishing that, listen, we don't have to do that anymore. You know, we're starting over. We're telling you, or sort of giving you this new idea that we don't have to have films. It's not important whether that is this in the DCEU or not. It's all in the DCEU. We're now establishing the multiverse, meaning that the Joker movie can take place on its own Earth, in its own timeline, and that's its own thing. But it's part of a multiverse. So the question of, is this in the DCEU or not, is no longer relevant. That's what I think she was saying, is that we're starting over. So you're the way you think about cinematic universes, at least for DC, has changed. You don't have to worry about that anymore because now we have the multiverse. So all of it is part of it, all of it. And whether or not there's crossover, it really doesn't matter. You shouldn't be concentrating on that. That's not what's important.
Thank you. I said for a long time, one of the things that I really preferred about the way DC was handling their overall properties as compared to Marvel, I love the fact that for a while they had a very clear wall between their movie world and their television world, right? The CW stuff and whatever else was not a part of the movie world. They were keeping those separately. I loved that because it didn't apply any handcuffs to what the TV shows could do creatively or what the movies do creatively. You don't have to worry, well, we can't do this in the TV show because that contradicts what they did in the movie. It was totally separate things. When I saw Walter Hamada talking about Multiverse, it really sounded to me like this is a way that we can maintain those walls, maintain that freedom for the people making the television shows. The people making the television shows don't have to give, in this multiverse idea, they don't have to give one lick of thought to what's happening in the movies. They don't have to worry about it. In the movie universe, they can blow up Chicago like they do in Transformers. That doesn't now have to play out. They can do whatever they want in the TV shows. So the way Walter Hamada seems to be describing Multiverse, it's almost like giving them that creative freedom to really keep things separate. But if they want to cross them over, given a certain idea, that they can. And I love the way you put it, Rob. It's no longer something, it's not even a question we have to worry about anymore.
Right.
Are they in the same universe is something we shouldn't have to address. And to me, that's kind of part of the brilliance of what they're doing. It allows them license to do something crossing over if and when they want to. But at the same time, it maintains a massive distinction between Robert Pattinson's Batman world and what's going on in Joaquin Phoenix's Joker movie. They're completely separate, 100% separate. And if they wanted to cross something over with CW's Arrow and Pattinson's Batman, they have an excuse. They have a built-in mechanism to do it without losing creative freedom. And to me, that's where the real genius of this lies. And I think it's kind of brilliant. So anyway, guys, question is, what do you think about this whole thing that they're talking about? Do you like this idea? Do you not? How do you interpret what the Muschietis were saying at Fandom Day 2? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys.